So you're probably thinking about Nigeria's future, maybe looking towards 2027 and wondering about the path forward, about change.
Right. And keeping track of the main voices in that conversation is, well, it's crucial.
Exactly. And today's deep dive, it really offers some important context on that. We're focusing on recent comments from former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. He's obviously a key opposition figure.
hmm We've been looking at his media appearances lately, specifically some interviews he did with Symphony TV. And what really comes across is his, let's say, deep concern about where things are headed.
Especially in certain areas.
Yes, particularly education and national security. Those seem to be his main focal points in these interviews.
Okay, so our aim today is really to unpack those concerns. We want to get to the heart of Atiku Abubakar's critique of, well, the current state of governance.
And also, crucially, look at how he kind of positions his own past experiences. Maybe it's a different way things could be done.
Right. So let's dive in. Where should we start? Maybe with that observation he made about education.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful starting point. His account of visiting Dara in Katsina State, he sounded genuinely moved, actually.
Moved how?
He talked about seeing just large numbers of young Almajiras. And it wasn't just, a passing comment. He described it affecting him quite deeply right from landing at the airport through to Dara itself. Said it nearly brought him to tears.
Wow. And Dara has that historical context too, doesn't it?
Exactly. That's what he highlighted. This is the place that housed the old Katina College where, many Nigeria's first republic leaders got their education.
So seeing it now, in his view, with so many kids seemingly out of the formal education system, that contrast must be pretty stark.
It really paints a picture of a significant shift, at least from his perspective. And he stressed that this isn't just about today. It's about the future generations.
He made it personal, I heard.
He did. He mentioned thinking about his own children, his grandchildren, and just the urgency of tackling this educational deficit for everyone's future.
Okay, so that's the concern he's raising now. But he also connected this to his own time in office, didn't he? As VP under Obasanjo. What specific things did he mention doing back then?
Well, he talked about a pretty deliberate strategy they had. He recalled setting up a special educational panel specifically focused on the northern states.
A panel? Was it just talk, or did it lead somewhere?
According to him, it was meant to be very practical. He mentioned bringing in an international economist, someone apparently with real expertise in this area, to lead it. And they actually developed a blueprint.
A blueprint for action. And what happened with it?
He said they presented this blueprint directly to all the northern governors, met them in Kaduna, basically urging them to adopt it, to implement the recommendations. So it sounds like he saw his role as pushing for state-level action.
Right, actively trying to get it implemented. Did he point to any national policies from that time?
Yes, definitely. The Universal Basic Education Program, the UBE, that came up. He emphasized how that aimed to make primary and secondary schooling compulsory and, importantly, free.
Free and compulsory. Big goals.
Yeah.
How did they plan to fund that?
He mentioned the education tax that was introduced, and he described a system where the money collected was specifically passed on to the states to support UBE.
So trying to create a mechanism to back the policy financially.
Seems like it. A structured approach, yeah.
Yeah.
Policy plus funding. Okay, so that's education. But then he shifted gears to another really critical area he discussed, national security.
Ah, yes, the policing issue. That was quite something.
It really was. He gave this very specific, almost startling example from his own local government area in Adamawa.
What was that?
He stated quite plainly that there are no more than 15 policemen covering the entire area. Just 15.
15 officers. For a whole local government, that number really lands, doesn't it?
It does. And he backed it up with the wider statistics, something like 340,000 police officers for the whole country. For what, 240 million people?
And he directly asked the listener, didn't he? Like, he posed the question to you listening now.
Yeah, basically. How can you possibly police effectively with those kinds of numbers? That's a fair question, you have to admit.
And he used a comparison to make the point even stronger.
Right. He mentioned Egypt. Smaller population, he said, maybe around 100 million, but with about 1 million police officers.
1 million versus 340,000 for a much larger population here.
Exactly. So his question becomes, how can Nigeria expect peace and security under these conditions? It's a stark comparison he draws.
And again, like with education, he didn't just state the problem. He looked back at his time as VP.
He recalled tackling similar policing challenges back then, too.
So what was their approach? How did they try to address underpolicing during his vice presidency?
Well, he talked about a UN report that came to their attention, one that apparently highlighted Nigeria being severely underpoliced. He said he took this directly to President Obasanjo.
And their response was?
Two main things, according to Atiku. First, reopening police training colleges that had been closed down across the states.
Okay, so boosting training capacity.
And second, just a concerted drive to recruit more police officers, get more boots on the ground, essentially.
A direct approach to increasing numbers. Did he mention equipment? Because numbers are one thing, but resources are another.
Yes, good point. He did touch on that. And he described, well, a different way they try to handle procurement.
Different how?
He said they tried to bypass what he called the cumbersome contract system for getting essential gear, things like arms, ammunition, vehicles, presumably.
So cutting through red tape, what did they do instead?
He described engaging directly with the ambassadors of the countries where Nigeria sourced its police equipment.
Going straight to the source countries via their embassies.
Exactly. The idea, he explained, was to speed things up, get direct communication going, and just expedite delivery. He seemed to suggest this diplomatic route yielded results much faster.
Interesting. Okay, so we've heard his concerns now. The education situation in the North, the really low police numbers nationally. And we've heard him recount specific things they apparently did as VP and president to tackle similar issues back then. How does this all come together in his overall message now?
Well, if you put it all together, what emerges, really, is an implicit comparison, isn't it? He's setting up a contrast.
A contrast between then and now.
Pretty much. He's highlighting what he clearly sees as a serious decline in effective governance today, especially when you measure it against the specific initiatives he remembers from his time in office.
Right, so it's not maybe a direct, we did X, they're doing Y poorly list, but by describing past actions alongside current problems in the same areas.
The message is strongly implied. He uses phrases like abject governance failure to describe the present situation in education and security.
And just to be clear for everyone listening, our goal here isn't to say whether his assessment or his memories of past actions are perfectly accurate or not.
Absolutely not. The point is to understand the perspective he's putting forward. He's a major opposition voice, positioning himself as someone with, relevant experience, and in his view at least, a track record on these very issues. He's making his case.
Okay, so as we kind of pull these threads together, what are the main takeaways from Atiku Abubakar's interviews that you, listening, should maybe keep in mind when thinking about the bigger political picture?
I'd say two things stand out most sharply. First, his really deep worry about education in the North, specifically mentioning the Almajiris. Second, his stark warning about the police numbers and what that means for national security.
And woven through both is that constant reference back to his vice presidency, presenting those past actions as a contrast to the current situation.
Precisely. He sees these as critical failures with, really serious consequences, not just now, but for Nigeria's future.
So, hearing Atiku Abubakar's perspective, his concerns, his recollections of the past, it leaves you with a question, doesn't it? What steps do you think are most essential for Nigeria to move forward and achieve the kind of change you might be hoping for? Something definitely worth reflecting on.
It certainly provides some valuable context as we all watch how things unfold.
Yeah.